Why do I fix everything I touch? So I was all set to have a video go up today about the new X-Men and Marvel related movies that Fox said they're working on. And then a trailer drop. So that means that gets bumped to tomorrow. And today I talk about the first proper trailer for Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet. So you may have guessed from the outfit, I'm a fairly big fan of Wreck-It Ralph. Actually, I go so far as to say I love Wreck-It Ralph. It's one of my favorite Disney movies of the last few years. I like it almost as much as I like Zootopia. I like it a little bit more than Frozen, if I'm being honest. I like it a lot. It's fun, it's funny, it's touching. There are parts of it I find incredibly moving. I love it. And so this trailer has come out. This is our first good, proper look at the thing, and you know, coming in as someone who loves these characters. I saw this trailer, and I hate everything. So, let me be fair. Even coming into this, I was already skeptical, because I tend to be skeptical of any film that is a sequel to a movie that not only didn't have a story that necessitated a sequel, but also had characters complete their arcs already. That's, I think, where a lot of sequels fall down. It's different when you're dealing with something like an action franchise where you can just set them in a different setting and just let the action flow again. If it's actually truly about the characters much more than the set pieces or anything else, if they've completed a character arc by the time the movie's done, it's hard to pick up again after that. And one of two things usually happens. Either they find a reason to reset the character back to how they were pre-completing their arc before, and you just see a retread of the exact same thing again, or they manufacture something that is going to either feel like a retread of their previous arc, or feels like a completely manufactured reason for them to have a new arc that doesn't feel like a natural progression of what came before. This is why the latter Shrek movies are so painful, because over the course of those first two, he had a complete journey from the grumpy place he started out to being a family man and being happy with that, you know, being married and having all of that. And then for Shrek 3 and 4, they have to set him back to being Grumpy Ogre again, even though the entire point of the previous movies was him not needing to be that anymore. It's why Finding Dory is one of the very few these kinds of sequels that has worked, because rather than focus on those two main characters being Marlin and Nemo again, the ones who went through arcs where they had to learn and adjust their own behavior in their own lives, instead it focused on a side character who was a lot of fun but didn't really have an arc in the film. Focus on her and the other ones be the side thing. And I think that would have been the smarter thing to do with Wreck-It Ralph 2, would have been to have it focus on somebody else, whether it's Vanellope, whether it's Felix, whether it's Calhoun, whether it's a new character. But putting Ralph front and center and putting his name in the title, Ralph Breaks the Internet, I think it's hard to argue that it's not going to be him front and center. So I was already nervous going in for that reason alone, because he completed his arc and nothing about the previous one necessitated a follow-up. But even with that in mind, I love these characters. I love this world. I would be happy to see more of it if it's done well. But like I said, I really hate this. And before anybody leaps down on me going, "Don't judge a movie by the trailer!" First of all, I'm not judging the movie, I'm judging the trailer. I'm judging the trailer by itself. Everything I talk about from this point forward is going to be me talking about what is in the trailer. I'm not talking about the rest of the movie. I haven't seen the rest of the movie, but I'm going to talk about what's in this trailer. I'm going to judge the hell out of it. And it's my right to, because you know why trailers exist? They exist to be judged. That is why they are here. Because companies, Disney in this case, put out trailers so you can judge them. They hope you will judge that you want to see the movie. That's not my judgment based off this, but it exists to be judged. So don't tell me that I should not be judging a trailer. Because yes, I should. It's why it exists. So, coming in right off the bat, we get the setup of the arcade being hooked up to the internet. I'm like, okay, not sure where that goes. And then there goes Vanellope and Ralph off to the internet. And then we start getting pop-up ad jokes and eBay jokes. And even if I get really generous and say that and don't make the assumption that these are already dated now, if not by the time the movie comes out, even if that isn't the case, this is gonna age poorly. All these references. A big part of what was smart about the previous film was that it was deliberately dealing with retro stuff that in fact is still around to various degrees. Not necessarily actual, coin-op arcades, but old school games still exist and still have fan bases and are still being discovered by younger gamers. So we know these are things that have endured. And really the only bit of touching on modern gaming that first movie did was with Hero's Duty, but that was not like a primary focus. It was basically touching on, wow, haven't games changed a lot, but then we move on because that's not what it's about. It's about Ralph. So lingering as this does, as the trailer does, because I'd like to say the movie may not, but the movie has internet in the title. It's hard for me to imagine that it won't. But moving on from that, it's just lingering on these, and these jokes are, first of all, I didn't think they were funny. Second of all, even if I did think they were funny, they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna age really badly. You know what it's gonna feel like? It's gonna feel like the Emoji Movie with all of its Dance Dance Revolution and Candy Crush references, which were already like, oh, that thing from like a year ago by the time that movie came out. And I can't imagine it's not gonna be a very similar situation here. They probably know enough to not reference specific apps, etc. by name unless they are ones like eBay that have stood the test of time and aren't liable to already be a flash in the pan that's over by the time the movie gets to theaters. But it doesn't matter because this will be referencing types of things that are flash in the pan kind of things. So we've got all that. None of this is clicking for me. None of this is making me smile, even being with these characters who I love. And then we get to the joke with the bunny and the cat and the little kid game. And I have a young kid, so I'm familiar with these types of games. Pancake milkshake, pancake I get it. And this is a setup that should work. Because unlike the general internet jokes, this is a game. This is Ralph's bread and butter. Ralph knows games. He knows how games are. So there's something to be milked out of how games have changed, and now this is a kind of game that didn't exist until a few years ago for a very young kid, very highly simplistic game. And even kind of get into it and be like, oh, I see the zen of this. I'm like, okay, this isn't a bad moment. It's much more organic. Again, putting him in a game of some form feels better, feels appropriate. But then the degree that they take the joke to, and you can call me a stick in the mud, you can call me a buzzkill, you can call me a party pooper. I don't find traumatizing children to be funny. I never have. Long before I had my own kid, I never found that kind of stuff funny. So, the one setup and gag that I was kind of like, okay, maybe, then overstepped, and I hate it. Because, and before you chalk this up to me being too sensitive, you could have the joke without traumatizing a child. All you would have had to have done was have this kid staring at this thing going, something's wrong with my game, and hand it to any older member of her family. We saw like a mother's driving, maybe she hands it to her father or, an aunt or some other adult in the front seat. Something's wrong with my game. An older sibling even, sitting next to her, somebody 10 or up, somebody who might think that what's going on is weird but could cope with what they're about to see. Because, we don't see it, but the gag is that the bunny has exploded. And you could have a reaction from an adult, from an older kid, being, sort of, ugh, or from an adult being, Why don't we try a different game or something? Or you could even have them give the freak out reaction and it'd be okay because it would just be shock. It wouldn't be the result of them being traumatized from having an emotional connection to this game and this bunny, which a kid that young would. And I know I'm getting overly weirdly hung up on this. I accept that, but no, I hate that. It's not okay. It's not funny. Childhood trauma like that, needless, gratuitous childhood trauma is not funny. Not when the trauma itself is what we are meant to be laughing at. It's possible to make a joke about anything, but when the joke is literally just, traumatized child, that is not funny. So, I hate this trailer. I do have to use the word hate. I can't say dislike, I can't say disappointed by, I hate this trailer. But, like I said, I will judge the ever-loving heck out of this trailer. I'm not going to judge the movie by it, because I haven't seen the movie. So, let's put on our silver lining, rose-tinted glasses and say, it is distinctly possible that there is more going on here than what I'm seeing. Because, I mean, what we get in this is we get setup, but no plot. We don't know what the plot of the thing is at all. We only know what the new setup is, the new situation is, and some of the new environments are. So there's plenty of room for the actual plot, whatever it may be, to pick up the slack. I'm still skeptical about that because, like I said, Ralph completed his arc. And if he's front and center on this again, I don't know how they're going to do something other than Ralph screwed something up and now has to fix it. I mean, that's kind of what the first one was, so not only would that feel like a retread, but the thing about the first one is not only did he have to fix something, it was about his personal journey, it was about his acceptance of his role as the villain of a game, but that doesn't make him a bad person. And it was about a personal journey in conjunction with the fact that he had to fix something that he broke. That personal journey is now complete, so having to fix something that he broke, even if it's something much bigger like the internet, that's not going to have the same resonance as it did last time. It can't. And even if you try to make it by, like I said before, resetting him so that he needs to go through this arc again, it can't ring as true the second time. The other example that I tend to think of in my head is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, which is a visually inventive film, and I love the Foodimals, but everything aside from them, I really doesn't work for me. And I think the reason it doesn't is what was great about the first Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movie was that pretty much every single character except the mayor, who was almost a villain, has an arc and completes it and has a journey and has something that they learn and makes them change. And so when you reassemble all these characters in the sequel, there's nothing to do with them but just plunk them down in a new situation. So instead they invent a new sort of having, you know, the main character in that have to overcome this thing that all of a sudden he has this issue. It's a bit like how in the second and third Back to the Future movies, out of nowhere, Marty can't handle being called chicken, which never came up in the first movie. They had to imprint something for him to grow over because he was fine at the end of the previous film. And that's the same thing that is potentially could happen here. But look, like I said, this is a few scant moments, and I even went back and looked at the initial trailer for the first Wreck-It Ralph and thought, did the trailer for the first one, would that have left me cold as well? And in some ways it did, because actually Wreck-It Ralph, I didn't rush out and see in the theater. I waited for home video to see that movie. But that first trailer for that movie gave us a sense of the character and a sense of his conflict. Because even in that very first trailer, you know, he's saying, I don't want to be the bad guy anymore. So it immediately clued you into where the journey is. This, I'm just getting gags, and if they don't hit, and they didn't for me, then there's nothing. I'm not getting a sense of anybody needing anything as a character from this, and that worries me. This is a 2-minute something trailer. There's plenty of room for there to be plenty of things that actually make this film work or even have it be great. but nothing that they show me in this trailer works for me. And I have no idea if this is a common reaction that I'm having to this, or if it's completely, you know, way off to the side. Because I watched the trailer, I didn't even make a mental note of what the upvote downvote ratio was. I haven't read other people's reactions. I don't know if I am vocalizing what other people feel or if I am completely anomalous in all this. I'm sure folks will tell me either way. In any case, first trailer for Wreck-It Ralph 2. What do you think about it? How would you fix it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's all the stuff to do. You know, like, subscribe, Patreon, buy a t-shirt, podcast, Twitter, bleh. Links for everything is down in the description. So until next time, this council is adjourned.